Swan here today with Denny Burk and Colin Smothers. Brothers, how are you doing?
Doing well, man.
Fantastic. Freezing my tail off here in Louisville, but otherwise doing great.
Yes.
If I sound a little froggy, it's because I've been sick, but I think I'm on the mend now.
We wanted to give Denny time to recover, ready to go for the podcast. Thank you, Denny. We know you're not feeling the best. Hey guys, there has been a lot to talk about. We thought we would record last week, then Denny got sick on us. We were going to talk about Mark Zuckerberg sort of pulling back some of the censorship policies they had. But we have a new president who has done quite a number of things in his first couple days. I believe there were some 200 executive orders, actions that first day, and lots of those to talk about. But there's one specifically that we should be talking about here at CBMW, and that is his order with the title, Defending Women from Gender Ideology, Extremism, and Restoring Biological Truth to the Federal Government. It's a pretty broad, sweeping order. I read one that I thought would have some similar content in it, his DEI one, but this one was far more well thought out, it appeared. What is your all's reaction to it? Why is this important?
It's an amazing repudiation of gender identity theory that's been dominant and on the ascent in the culture for the last 10 years now or longer. It's really a remarkable document. I mean, I can hardly believe some of the things that it says in here about what it means to be male and female. It almost all lines up with what we say in the Nashville statement, for example. If you take out the God parts about God creating everything, it's basically trying to define male and female in the same way, according to nature.
Yeah, I think that's right. In fact, we were going to talk about the Zuckerberg announcement where he was redefining the policy at Facebook. He wasn't going to be so censorious on issues of gender and sexuality, et cetera. And that was a big deal. But I don't think this can be overstated how much bigger a deal this is. I mean, we're talking about informing federal policy from the top down, a complete 180 from what the Biden administration in the last 4 years has been shoving down the throats of the American people. And we're talking very technical definitions of male, technical definitions of female, technical definitions of what is sex defined in law. That is some of the stuff that, Denny and I, John, you would write. And now this is in an executive order from the President of the United States. That is remarkable.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think back on the last few years, right? So the Biden administration in 2021 initiates the Trans Visibility Day. And then last year on Easter, that day fell and he issues his proclamation, which upset, I think rightly, a lot of people. They changed gender designation on federal forms, added the X gender on passports. Pride flags were being flown from government buildings. I remember seeing them on buildings in St. Louis. And then, one of the most memorable moments of his tenure was Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, who couldn't define a woman. Yet here we have, in the first few hours of Trump's second term, an actual definition of what a woman is. And so I want to just go over some of those and have you guys react. This is in section 2. The first part of the order lays out just the purpose of the order, and that has to do with I thought it was amazing that he starts it by defending truth, that a federal government must run on truth. It's necessary. It says truth is critical to scientific inquiry, public safety, morale, and trust in government. But let me get down to those definitions. First, we have sex. Sex shall refer to an individual's immutable biological classification as either male or female. Sex is not a synonym for and does not include the concept of gender identity. Then we move to woman. Women or woman and girls or girl shall mean adult and juvenile human females, respectively. Men or man and boys, or boy shall mean adult and juvenile human males, respectively. And then female means a person belonging at conception to the sex that produces the large reproductive cell and male means a person belonging at conception to the sex that produces the small reproductive cell. You've already mentioned that these line up a lot with what we would already say, but what specifically, how should Christians receive and think about these definitions that Trump's government has put forward?
You know, the parts that you just read, when I read through those in the executive order, I thought, whoever wrote this, it sounds like they've been reading Abigail Favale's book, which is a really important book we've talked about here on the podcast before. But what's fascinating in her book is that she defines male and female in the exact same way. She says that, you know, a male is the person who has the potential for producing the small gamete, and a female is a person who has the potential for producing the large gamete, which means there's one sex that produces eggs and there's another sex that produces sperm. And for whatever biological abnormalities there are out there, intersex conditions and all the rest, there's only two ways of reproducing. Either the kind that where you're a person with a body organized for reproducing as a man, or as a father, or as a body organized for reproducing as a mother. You have large gametes or small gametes, and there's really no in between, and no disorder kind of wipes that out. And so I'm reading this and I'm thinking, this is exactly what, you know, Abigail, you know, Favale says in her book. So it sounded like they're either reading her book or an endocrinology book. I don't know. But it is basically a fundamental affirmation of the biological binary between men and women, and saying that all the categories of gender no longer apply. We're going to define male and female not by a person's sense of self-assessed, what are my feelings today? But we're gonna evaluate and define man and woman by whether or not they're male or female.
I think that's huge. And Denny, I had the same reaction when I was reading that. You know, are they reading Favale? Are they, reading Ryan Anderson? One of my friends, he texted me and he said, "Hey, they must have listened to you and Denny's podcast on the Nashville Statement and then wrote in this executive order." Whatever it is that's influencing this administration with this executive order, again, it is a complete 180, and in many ways a repudiation of even some of the same arguments that are right now before the Supreme Court. You think of the Scrimeti case that is about transgenderism and transgender medicine for minors, et cetera, in the state of Tennessee, and it's like the federal government here is now on record saying, no, when it comes to the law of the land, sex is how it's always been defined, and we're going to interpret it that way, that it refers to the biological construction for reproduction, either as male or female. And again, I don't think you can overstate what a big deal that is.
And the interesting thing is, it's not like they're quoting chapter and verse from the Bible. It's that they're just looking at nature. In other words, it's a reflection of the order that God has put in creation. Even with secular people who may not even recognize God as creator as we do, they're just recognizing that there is a fundamental design in the way that we were made. We're just different. And so, we're not saying this is a Christian document, but I am saying that this lines up a lot more with what Christianity teaches about male and female than anything that we saw recently with all the transgender propaganda coming out.
That's right. It is on that front good to move into the realm of reality in terms of nature and human nature. Why do you guys think this order begins its title, Defending Women? And there's an emphasis throughout on defending women, women's rights. Why is that important?
That to me, that's politics, right? In other words, you can't title this on defining the difference between male and female according to large and small gamete. That's not what it's about. And, the reason the public is interested in this at large is because of the way that it's impacting people's lives practically. We know how women's sports have been compromised by this, but there are a lot more things even more important than sports that are compromised by this. In fact, a part of this order is to instruct all the federal prisons to classify inmates according to their biological sex and no longer according to gender identity. Why? Because if you don't do that, then you end up with a woman in a prison cell with a man. And we keep hearing these cases. They're horrible, where the woman is assaulted by the man she's in the prison cell with. Why was she in the prison cell with the man? Because he identified as a woman. because he claimed a faux gender identity and got himself in a situation where he's being housed with women. In other words, people care about this because of the way that it's harmful to specific people. And probably the specific class of people that have been most harmed by this are women. I think it's harmful to everybody, but especially women. We've just seen this.
Well, and one of the reasons why, the context is defending women is so many of the challenges have tried to come along the lines of civil rights legislation. We're talking Title VII, Title IX, and they're using the definition of the word sex. They're changing it, obviously away from the way that legislation was originally intended, and they're shoehorning all this gender ideology, very harmful ideology, into that concept. And this executive order says, no more. We're not going to be doing that. And, we started at the top talking about Mark Zuckerberg's, about face on this issue. An ongoing debate in evangelicalism is whether or not culture influences politics and is upstream, et cetera. I think there's a real question here how much politics now is going to dictate and influence culture and what sort of Overton window has been shifted in this direction. I mean, I don't think you have Mark Zuckerberg making that announcement apart from an incoming Trump administration that has been on record. They're going to do exactly these kinds of things. And I think that is an absolutely great step for the American culture.
100%. Another one of these issues that we'll mention because it's mentioned in the executive order, as we were approaching the election and thinking about what Trump will do in his second term, the pro-life issue has been a real big question and a topic of discussion. But when we get to the definitions of male and female here, we sort of have some smuggled in pro-life language, right? We have a female means a person belonging at conception to the sex that reproduces the large reproductive cell. And then, of course, the similar definition, similar wording, a person belonging at conception for males. Why is that important?
I've seen that language being used around this executive order. I've even used it myself, smuggled in pro-life, doctrine or something. No, that's actually just the basic science. Literally, a zygote is either male or female at conception because you either have the presence of a Y sperm or an X sperm that is going to code that individual person, new life, as either male or female. So I've seen a lot of backlash from liberal wing of social media saying, oh, well, that's technically not true. No, absolutely. This is the most scientific definition of life according to how we are designed by our creator, male or female.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? We could do redaction criticism and try to guess at, who wrote what here. But I really am curious, who wrote this? I don't think Donald Trump didn't write this. Nope. Somebody on the staff wrote this, and I am very curious. I'm kind of curious just to know. It sounds like somebody with a Christian worldview. So I'd be curious about the provenance of this to know who came up with it. It would also probably tell us something about whether or not items like you just noted were accidental or, maybe intentional. Sure. Right. And trying to weave this into a whole life human ethic, which is really what this is all about. Because, the way we talk about these things is reflecting a theology. It's reflecting a certain kind of theological anthropology. And it sounds like this person has their act together, whoever put this together or whatever group of people put this together.
Yeah, it's great to see this kind of order put together in a worldview, right? There's a metaphysic and an ethic here. Who knows who the person was, what they're reading, or how good they are at ChatGPT.
Yeah. Exactly.
You never know. Well, brothers,
maybe ChatGPT wrote all of these.
It could be. We'll never know. But President Trump has signed them, and that is something in which we can rejoice. Guys, thank you so much for the discussion today.